Hello everyone and welcome back to Navis Nobilite. I am Captain Zelnick and today we are going to be continuing our fleet and ship overviews with the Inquisition. Now this is sort of a combined video that goes over the Inquisition as a whole and the ships that they get, namely because this fleet is not actually much like any other Imperial fleet. All you do is you add these ships on top to give your Imperial Navy, Space Marine, or Adeptus Mechanicus fleets a little more flavor. So, beginning, we have the Inquisition Black ship at 300 points. It is a battleship with 12 hits, 20 centimeters speed, 45-degree turns, 5 shields, which is impressive for a battleship, armor 6 up front, 5 up rear and side, and 5 turrets. Already we have a very high defense platform. It is armed with port and starboard 30 centimeter strength 10 weapons batteries firing left and right, a strength 2 30 centimeter dorsal lance firing front, left, right, and a strength 6 prow torpedo salvo firing up the front. All right. Well, we're looking at basically a battle cruiser level firepower in a battleship body. It even has sub battle cruiser firepower because everything is locked in at 30 centimeters. So why take this ship? It seems pretty awful for 300 points. And the reason is ultimately for fluff-based reasons for your own personal stories in battles, or if you have a campaign. And here is the rules regarding that. Inquisition Black ships ultimately have very similar rules to Space Marines, but they cannot board any enemy vessels. Plain and simple, you cannot board with this ship. If you are boarded, you essentially count as having Space Marines. You add +2 to your roll, and if somebody hit and run attacks you, they suffer a -1 modifier. You get no other Space Marine special rules whatsoever. So bear that in mind. Even when used with fleets of Space Marines will not embark on this ship. The Gellerfield rule, ultimately this ship has a separate system that can suffer damage. If you suffer a shield's collapsed critical hit, roll a d6. On a 4 up, the Gellerfield is also damaged and must be repaired before the ship departs the table or disengages, or the ship counts as being destroyed. The Gellerfield is repaired as normal as with any other repairable critical hit damage, though it does not repair the shield's collapse critical. Now, this vessel has a special objective involved. The vessels are especially rare and fulfill the important mission of dragging screaming psychers to be eaten by the Emperor. They are carefully protected by Imperial forces, and they are prized by their enemies. It is not uncommon that they, in of themselves, will be the object of a battle, so bear that in mind for things like surprise attack. This vessel counts as 500 victory points instead of 300 if destroyed. However, the owning player gets 3 additional renown if it survives the battle, and +2 renown if crippled. This will give you, if it survives the battle, an enormous advantage in winning campaigns. So if you're an Imperial player who likes the Inquisition, this is not a bad ship to take to give you a really hefty advantage in a campaign. Now, moving on, you have the Inquisitorial Cruiser sitting at 270 points. The Inquisitorial Cruiser has 8 hits, 25 centimeter speed, 45-degree turns, 2 shields, 6 up armor all around, and 2 turrets. It is equipped with on the port and starboard, 60 centimeter strength 8 weapons batteries left and right, a strength 6 30 centimeter dorsal bombardment cannon that fires left, front, and right, and it has a prow launch bay that fires Thunderhawks that move 20 centimeters and at firepower 2, which I already mentioned. I apologize. Now, aside from being effectively the Space Marine equivalent of a standard cruiser, there are some other fun rules regarding these. In addition to the profile listed above, Inquisitorial cruisers follow the special rules specific to the ordo they serve under for the points cost listed on page 7. So, in effect, they gain additional special rules when you slap an Inquisitor on there. Now, Prow torpedoes. An inquisitorial cruiser may replace its launch bays for a strength 6, 30 centimeter torpedo salvo for no change in cost, and they fire boarding torpedoes or normal torpedoes. The ship does not have to be modified to serve as an exterminatus vessel if it takes torpedoes, and it causes exterminatus on a 3 plus instead of a 4. They do not have access to Thunderhawk annihilators, even if included in a Space Marine Crusade fleet. Again, basically a cruiser grade strike cruiser. They also have an option for 15 points to replace the dorsal bombardment cannon for a strength 2 45 centimeter lance that fires front, left, right. Again, lots of options for this sucker. It's a phenomenal little vessel and a great little ship for your commander. Now, moving on. Grey Knights strike cruisers. The Grey Knights get a really neat little strike cruiser. It comes standard with 2 shields instead of the normal shield that the Space Marines get, though you do pay a premium for this vessel at 165 points. Now, what does it have? It is a 6-hit, 25 centimeter speed, 90-degree turn ship with 2 shields, 6 up armor all around, and 2 turrets. Its armament is identical to that of a strike cruiser, with a port and starboard, strength 4, weapons battery at 30 centimeters, the prow strength 3 bombardment cannon that fires front, left, right, and a Thunderhawk loaded prow launch bay at strength 2. Now, you have a couple of special Wooji rules that involve Grey Knights. Number 1, Grey Knight strike cruisers roll 5d6 on all ahead full instead of 4. They just are the best technology that they have to offer. They also do not have access to Thunderhawk annihilators, even when using a Space Marine Crusade list, but because they are Grey Knights, you re-roll any boarding action result with a second roll standing. They are basically the best boarding that the Imperial Navy has to offer. Now, you may replace the launch bays. Half of the Grey Knight strike cruisers in a fleet may replace their launch bays for a strength 6, speed 30 centimeter torpedo tubes, or a firepower 5, range 30, front arc only, bombardment cannon battery for no change in cost, just like a standard strike cruiser. Now, this is awesome. I love these little ships. You're going to be heavily restricted in the number that you can take, but it is possible to take a purely Grey Knights fleet. Now, over here, Grey Knights Battle Barge, a fleet led by an Ordo Malleus Inquisitor, including at least 1,000 points of Inquisition vessels and Grey Knight strike cruisers, may include a single Grey Knights Battle Barge. It follows the same standard profile for battle barges in all respects, and benefits from all Grey Knight special rules listed here and on page 51, namely the advantage on boarding. So, bear that in mind. Now, on to the actual fleet list. Now, there isn't so much a fleet list as there is a thing that you can slap on top of another fleet list. In any Imperial or Space Marine fleet, worth 750 points or greater may be led by an Inquisitor Lord, who must be placed on an Inquisition Black ship if one is present, or on the most expensive ship in the fleet if one is not. They must be aboard an Inquisitorial cruiser if it is included in the fleet, even if it is not the most expensive ship or a black ship is also present. So ultimately, the cruiser has primacy over everything. Now, they cost 75 points. You can take only one, and they come with a reroll. You may purchase a second reroll for 25 points. So, now this is not the only points that you can spend on it. You have a number of upgrades over here, but let's talk about the ships. Any Imperial or Space Marine fleet may include a single Inquisitorial cruiser in the fleet, which takes the place of a battle cruiser or strike cruiser in the fleet. If an Inquisitor Lord is leading the fleet, up to one Grey Knight strike cruiser may be taken for every 500 points in the fleet. A Space Marine fleet led by an Inquisitor Lord may rely heavily, or exclusively, on Grey Knight strike cruisers if desired, in which case a single Grey Knight's battle barge may be taken. The fleet may also include a single black ship, which is a special vessel that does not count towards or against other ship limits in the fleet. Now, this 500 point limit applies to the Space Marine fleet, which means you may take only one strike cruiser per 500 points in the fleet. So bear that in mind. You will have fewer strike cruisers than other things in a purely Grey Knights fleet. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. You should be taking escorts in a Space Marine fleet anyway. Escorts. Squadrons of 2 to 6 escorts may be taken from the Imperial, Space Marine, or Adeptus Mechanicus fleet lists as appropriate in any mix desired, following the normal rules and restrictions for those fleet lists. For example, if an Inquisitor and his cruiser are leading a Imperial Navy fleet, only Imperial Navy escorts may be taken. So, bear in mind, ultimately, even if you're taking an Inquisitor Lord, you may only take stuff from that fleet list. Now, things get a little weird when we talk about the Inquisitors themselves, because you can take somebody from the Ordo Hereticus, Ordo Xenos, or Ordo Malleus, and it will further augment your fleet. Now, we're going to begin with the Ordo Hereticus. A vessel embarking the Ordo Hereticus ultimately gains the benefits of having Space Marines on that ship. They get the maximum leadership they could possibly get at leadership 10 for 25 points, I would point out. Excellent boarding with +2 and +1 to their hit and run attack. And the -1 defense from hit and runs. Now, if a black ship is used as an Exterminatus vessel, a Hereticus Inquisitor must lead it. So if you have a black ship and it's an Exterminatus vessel, a Hereticus Inquisitor must lead it. So this is actually pretty restrictive. There are more rules coming later. Now, Ordo Xenos Inquisitor Lord. For 30 points, you get the same leadership and Space Marine pseudo benefit of the Hereticus Inquisitor Lord. Now, what you also have the benefit of is any rolled saves by hollow fields, shadow fields, or any similar rule against a boarding action or hit and run attack succeed on a 3+ instead of a 2+, weakening the advantage of the Eldar and Dark Eldar significantly. Additionally, the vessel upon which the Inquisitor Lord is embarked must roll once against the following table and apply it to the ship. The refit may be selected for an additional 5 points. Long-range sensors. The vessel adds +1 to its base leadership, max of 10. Now, this is not necessarily a problem, except that you already are getting leadership 10 base standard because your Inquisitor Lord is LD9. So, yeah, that's not much of a upgrade to take. Targeting matrix is where things get interesting. Vessel counts all targets as closing when on the gunnery table within 30 centimeters and ignores all right shift modifiers for shooting greater than 30 centimeters. Ultimately, you are shooting with far greater efficiency, and if you are on a inquisitorial cruiser, that strength 8 weapons battery becomes far more lethal. You have advanced shielding, +1 shield. Ship defense grid, +1 turret. Advanced drive technology. Ship adds +5 centimeters to speed, as well as +1d6 when undergoing all-head full special orders. And gravitic thrusters. Vessel doubles the maximum rate of its normal turn, so from 45 to 90. Now, an Ordo's Xenos Inquisitor will only be called when an alien threat significantly exceeds a given sector stabilis mandate. The enemy Xenos fleet adds d6 times 50 points of escort vessels to its fleet for free. So this again sets you up for a really fluffy battle, and yeah, there are consequences to taking fun upgrades, which is one of the reasons why I really enjoy the Inquisition, because you can take these fun upgrades, but your enemies are going to get upgrades too. Now, Ordo Malleus Inquisitor Lord, 25 points. A vessel embarking an Ordo Malleus Inquisitor gets all of those fancy benefits of being basically a Space Marine. Hit and run attacks from the ship add 1 to their dice roll and subtract enemy hit and runs by 1. Now remember, Grey Knights are aboard, which means this thing will be re-rolling its boarding action. It's squads of Grey Knights. That's a Grey Knight rule. Now, this ship or one Grey Knights vessel may board Grey Knights Terminator boarding parties for 50 points, using the Space Marine Terminator boarding party rules. Every Grey Knights vessel in the fleet may embark Honor Guard for 10 points each. This ship and every Grey Knight's vessel mounts gee, who comes up with these words? Wards throughout its hull and ignores any chaos marks or demon ships that affect leadership or boarding actions. Marks of Slaanesh do not affect the leadership of the vessel. Marks of Khorne do not double boarding values against this ship. Rules for Chaos Space Marines still apply as normal, and any other special rules and effects such as Forces of Chaos listed on page 158 of the rulebook remain unaffected. An Ordo Malleus Inquisitor will only be called when intense demonic activity threatens to overrun an entire sector. The enemy Chaos fleet may add one Mark of Chaos, or upgrade a cruiser to a demon ship at no cost. They also may do so again for any time for the number of times that there are Grey Knight strike cruisers in the fleet. So, what does this all mean? Well, first things first, in regards to the effect of the mark. This means that Marks of Slaanesh have no effect. This means Mark of Khorne has no effect. With the exception of, well, actually, just in general, they have no effect because both of those are either leadership based or boarding. Now, Mark of Nurgle, you still get that +1 hit to the ship, but Grey Knight strike cruisers and Grey Knight vessels may board Nurgle ships. So be very aware that your greatest defense from enemy Space Marine boarding actions does not apply to Grey Knights. They can board anything. Now, what does it mean for the Chaos player? What is the benefit you get? Well, you can have a whole bunch of free upgrades, and these upgrades are not cheap. You can take Marks of Nurgle on more ships that give them additional hits. You can take Marks of Tzeentch that let you gain additional rerolls. You can turn your ships into demon ships for free. That is a huge upgrade. That's a huge amount of points for, just because your enemy decided to play a fluffy list and take all Grey Knights. So, again, an excellent and fun little balancing effect, which makes the game a little more challenging for the Grey Knight player. Now, there are a number of other very important special rules. Now, using them. Now, if an ordnance and upgrades. If an Imperial Navy or Adeptus Mechanica ship embarking an Inquisitor is equipped with launch bays, it must replace its attack craft with Thunderhawks. Plain and simple. With its launch bay strength divided in half, basically the same as taking a Venerable Battle Barge. Any ship with torpedoes gains boarding torpedoes for no additional cost, and can act as exterminatus vessels. Your attack rating, this is for campaigns only, scenario subplots for campaigns only. Reserves and allies, this is where things get interesting. You can, if you so desire, take some interesting reserves as a result of the nature of your Ordo that your Inquisitor is in, but you lose all of the fancy benefits of basically having Space Marines on the ship. So, what does it mean? Okay. Boiled down to the absolute basics. Okay? An Imperial Navy or Adeptus Mechanicus fleet led by an Inquisitor Lord does not include Space Marine vessels. That does not include Space Marine vessels may take reserves and or allies in the following manner. Ordo Hereticus. By the nature, this Ordo tends to be made up of the most conservative and Puritan members of the Inquisition. Rogue traders will be regarded with particular suspicion, though a single rogue trader and its attendant escorts may accompany the fleet. What this basically gives you is one ship with a bunch of funky little special rules and a number of attending escorts that could give you some benefits either in campaign games or in one-off battles. It is probably the least powerful of the three options. Ordo Xenos Inquisitor. While the Inquisitors of the Ordo Xenos know they must be fully cognizant of Xenos races in order to defeat them, radical Inquisitors of this Ordo that follow the philosophies of Istvanists and Hybrists? God, these are weird words. Actively cultivate accommodation with aliens and seek their technology for the Imperium's benefit. For no change in their cost, a fleet led by an Ordo Xenos Inquisitor may be accompanied by a single Demiurge, capital ship, Corsair Eldar cruiser, or Tau cruiser. If taken, the Inquisitor ship loses its Death Watch contingent along with the leadership and boarding value bonuses. So, for the Ordo Xenos Inquisitor, if you take this particular decision to remove those Death Guard for the boarding value, it makes having the long range sensors make valuable because that will pump your leadership back up to 10. But also, can you imagine an Imperial vessel or an Imperial fleet with a Corsair Eldar cruiser like an Eclipse or a Shadow in its fleet, or filling up a point vacuum with an Aurora or a Solaris? How crazy is that? You can even take a Tau cruiser, any kind of Tau cruiser. You can take a Protector, an Emissary. You can take a Hero. You can take a Merchant. Now this one's wacky. Demiurge capital ship. You can take a Stronghold if you so desire. You have so many fun options with the Ordo Xenos, but you lose your boarding contingent. Oh no! Ordo Malleus Inquisitors. Inquisitors of this Ordo are more knowledgeable of the dire threat chaos poses to all humanity than virtually anyone in the Imperium. Some radical Inquisitors of this Ordo come to believe they can actually control this to an extent, turning chaos against itself to humanity's benefit. For no change in their cost, a fleet led by an Ordo Malleus Inquisitor may take as reserves any ship listed in the Bastion fleet list on page 29 of Armada. Now, I made a video about that Bastion fleet list and why it's so good. Critically, these vessels are free of the Strange Happening special rule as long as the Inquisitor ship remains in play, which means there are no negative consequences to taking a repulsive Grand Cruiser, Executioner Grand Cruiser, or any of the other cruisers in that list, so long as you have an Ordo Malleus Inquisitor. The downside, you can't take Grey Knight vessels, and you lose your Grey Knights contingent. So, and likewise, Chaos opponents gain no benefits as the Grey Knights are absent. So, what does this mean? It's basically the reserve fleets of the reserve Bastion fleets. Guess what? You have all the benefits and none of the negatives so long as your Inquisitor stays alive. These are amazing little rules that can really bring a lot of flavor to your Imperial fleets. They can, some of these are reasonably expensive when it comes to upgrades, but what they do is they bring a lot of character and a lot of interesting tactical opportunities, especially with the Ordo Xenos Inquisitors or the Ordo Malleus Inquisitors. When it comes to the Ordo Hereticus, there's a lot of interesting things that they'll gain a unique advantage on with the Rogue Traders. I'll get onto that when I actually do the Rogue Trader fleets, which will be coming up reasonably soon. But ultimately, that's the Inquisition. A interesting overlay, you could call it, over any Imperial fleet that will bring you a great deal of fun. Now, in regards to, I want to go over just one more time a Grey Knights fleet, because personally, I love the Grey Knights. And I like fielding Grey Knights fleets because I'm a glutton for punishment. The way you would ultimately do it is you would be probably in a 1,500 point list you're only getting 3 Grey Knight strike cruisers. So you're going to need that inquisitorial inquisitorial cruiser to serve as basically your hammer and a whole bunch of escorts. Or in a bigger fleet, take that Grey Knight's battle barge. It's still a battle barge. It has all the benefits of being Grey Knights and making it ultimately a better battle barge than the standard one. You only get one, but you have a lot of powerful escorts to back you up. All right. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all again in the next video.